Time is more valuable than money. You can get more money, but you cannot get more time. Jim Rohn. DC Tribe, Josh Thomas, super glad to have you. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Do Zone podcast on Apple and or Spotify. This podcast is brought to you by Unbreakable Teams. We fix broken systems for entrepreneurs so they can go farther, faster. You can learn more by going to unbreakableteams.com. Once again, that's unbreakableteams.com. Today's guest is Miguel Brambilla. He is a Mexico City transplant living in Austin, Texas for 10 years. He has over 20 years of professional experience in the hospitality and leisure industry with a master's in strategic management. Miguel, welcome to the Do Zone. Say what's up to the tribe and tell us something you believe is the key to getting stuff done that most people wouldn't think of.
Hi, Josh. Thank you for having me. So I would say that probably, well, not probably, I'm sure that consistency is always better than talent. And that will make you achieve whatever you want, regardless of your limitations. If you pursue something and be very tough, you will get it.
Consistency is always better than talent. I like that's yes. That's a strong opener there. I have not been good at very many things in my life, Miguel, but I have been consistent at a lot of things. And was just talking last night with a group of people. I went to this improv class. Have you ever done an improv class?
No, never. Would love to.
It's pretty intimidating at first because you have to like invent things on the spot and you have to try to be clever and entertaining and funny. And like, if you're not used to doing that, it's just like, ugh. But we got to talking about it and I realized I'm pretty good at this, not because I'm clever and creative and funny, but because I have recorded more than 500 podcast episodes in my life. And just the fact that I have to come up with something on the spot so many times. If I go back to when I first started, my very first episode of my first podcast, it was horrible. I had no talent whatsoever. Yeah. But what I did have was I had consistency. And that's what brought us here today, man. It's a great point.
Yeah, it makes sense. You don't have to have everything. It's good to not know because you don't know, and that's fine. You don't have to worry about that. The problem is that if you're not open to learn, you will never be there.
Yeah. Well said. It's yeah, you're like the ultimate Mexican fortune cookie here, man. This is amazing. the churro, the fortune churro.
The fortune churro.
That's awesome. And so but yeah, you really you don't have to know everything. And that's okay. You're really striking a nerve with me in several places because I was always of the belief that in order for me to be respected, in order for people to take me seriously, I had to go and know all of the things. Like there was so much to know in the world that that I had to go and figure that out first, because obviously all these people that were already getting attention, they had already figured it out. I need to go and learn it. But there's one thing I want to ask you about because I know that you're into AI. And this is a great segue, I think. Back when I was just learning about the world and how it worked in the 90s, I'm a child and, I'm getting into my teenage years in the 90s and the world seemed smaller. It seemed like there was less to know. It seemed like there was less information out there to go and collect and gather. And if you go back at like information grows exponentially. I think is it Moore's law that talks about data doubling every 2.5 years or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Intel, they do that like every other year. I think they just make their chips smaller and with double the capacity.
Right. And
Crazy.
so, and so if we take that and extrapolate the amount of information available, let's say that it correlates. We go back 50 years, 100 years, 200 years. The amount of information available was a fraction of what's available now. I've come to the realization as information has exponentially grown, it's not possible for me to know all of the things. There's too much to know now.
And that's okay.
And that's
You don't have to
okay.
worry about that.
And that's okay. And so, because we have these tiny little feeble brains that were barely capable of understanding everything there was to know 200,000 years ago, and they have not received an upgrade since then. Now we have AI to help us and make us a little bit kind of bionic, if you will. And I want you to tell me about that, because you have really dove off of the deep end to really study this, and you're exploring this. And so I think that the first thing for me is AI exists because there's just too much for us to even sift through at this point, and we need a little bit of help. But that's just my opinion. What have you discovered?
Yeah, and you're right. The more you see, the less you know. And probably when you were little, you didn't know that you didn't know, because you don't know what's out there until you start going out and start to explore. So it's could be sometimes even frustrating for people to realize that you're not going to be able to understand or learn everything. So these tools, the artificial intelligence tools, are just they compile what we give them through the internet and through that databases, and they put together with a language that we can communicate with, very simple, simplistic, and easily to understand for us. You will have so many things at once that you will be able to understand consistently and put together in just a couple of sentences, which is very practical. I don't know if you have heard about all the restrictions now with universities and
Yeah,
institutions.
yeah,
So now
everything is
students
so
are,
fresh. Yeah, so
yeah. So now students, we didn't have that during that time. But now what they are doing is just if they get, uh, they need to give a paper, write a paper or something, they go through the artificial intelligence and they ask the artificial intelligence to give them all the information, and pretty much the computer is doing the work for students. So now uh, people are afraid of, you know, people not learning because they are using technology to do that. So there's the counterpart, which is the anti-artificial intelligence detector. So you can actually know if a text or idea has been spread over the internet before, and it explores all the available databases. So it's pretty interesting. So we are just like fighting one side through the other,
you,
getting more and more interesting now.
there's always going to be a sector of the population that fights progress. Whether that progress is good or bad, we're not going to get into that argument right now. But there's always going to be a slice of the population that says, this is the way we need to go. And there's going to be another slice that says, no, I don't want to go there. That's wrong. Whoever's right, whoever's wrong doesn't matter. That's always going to happen. And so what's happening now, it sounds like, is, well, if this tool is available, it is going to make people not have to work so hard or not have to learn. They can just use AI and turn in their paper. And that's true. But there's several sides to that argument. I mean, there's like a whole rainbow of spectrum of things that could be produced from this. First of all, what AI is really doing is it is challenging your antiquated forms of assessment of intelligence. Yeah. That's what's really happening, because used to, we could just, if you turned in a paper, I'm going to grade you on the quality of this paper and see how well you wrote it and how strong your points were or whatever. Now AI can do that. And so is it even relevant for me to make those strong arguments? Or should there be another way that you assess me so that I cannot reproduce this with AI? Rather than let's
Exactly.
get more sophisticated technology, why don't we change the way that we look at what intelligence actually is? Thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I don't think. Well, first, I think the education system is out of date, outdated 100%. It has to change. And this is probably just instead of a threat, it's an opportunity to rethink how we are getting our knowledge and the way people are learning new stuff. I really believe that when we were little, it was for upper generations, it was easier just to go to college and get a good job and be able to buy a house and afford like probably one or two vehicles. Right now, if you go to college, that doesn't mean you're gonna make it. You will probably uh, have two jobs or start your own thing, gig economy, to deliver pizzas, whatever, to compensate for the lack of money that you're not going to be able to make, even though you have your bachelor's degree and your 4 year studies. So probably these will open people's minds and educators just to change that in the near future.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. And it's a one way that you could look at this is a little simplistic, but there was a point that we did not have digital calculators, and digital calculators at the time, I'm sure, were creating a huge debate. Like, oh, well, people are going to get stupid because they no longer have to do math. Now, there may be some truth to that, because not only will I gladly admit that I suck at math, but it's actually cool to admit that you suck at math. Like, that has become socially acceptable behavior because we have calculators. And
You don't
so
have to know.
you don't have to know, but is it going to be considered cool to not know how to form an argument because AI can do it for me? Interesting question. I don't know. What do you think?
Probably not, but probably we will just turn the page and do something else. It's like going to the movies. We have Netflix, but people still go to the movies.
Yeah,
We have vehicles, but people still walk and jog.
that's true.
So
That's true. And here's I saw a meme. This was a very deep philosophical meme, by the way. But I saw a meme the other day that had like this super angry professor, and it was like, you have to turn in 5,000 words or it doesn't count or whatever. And then it said, real life, if you can't tell me in 7 seconds, I'm out. And
yeah,
so the real
the
challenge has to be like,
attention span, man, right
yeah,
now is really it's
yeah.
gone.
How do I take this entire point in this entire argument and boil it down to one sizzle sentence that's just going to really get my point across? Because nobody's going to read that paper anyway. AI wrote it. Who cares?
Yeah, but at least that proves that you are good with computers. You know how to
You know how to talk into one.
manage. At least you're probably know how to turn it on and
Hey
get the
Siri,
antivirus. Yeah.
hey Siri, go to Chat GPT and ask it
Yeah.
to write me a 500-word term paper on X. Yeah.
Yeah, we were I was recently invited from
You'll need to
Google.
download one.
It's
Yeah,
too smart. My
be
phone was right
careful.
there. It was listening.
It's
Yeah.
always listening. Be careful what you say,
Yeah,
man.
it's listening to my conversation right now. It's taking offense. Yeah.
Yeah. I was invited 2 days ago for a beta test from Google. Um, they are about to start putting out their artificial intelligence. Let's see how that goes. It's going to
Yeah.
be very interesting because they have one of the biggest databases worldwide. So they need to compile and put together so much information. It's going to be very interesting, and it's going to be voice activated, instead of typing. So it's going to be more human interaction instead of just typing. I don't know if you have ever heard about Chat GPT. Uh,
Yes. Yes,
okay.
I've used
Have
it.
you ever tried it, played with
Yes.
it, live
Uh-huh.
it? It's fun, right?
Yeah. It
So
does the job as long as you're clear enough with your instructions.
yeah, you need to be very clear, and it has a little bit of bias, I think. It depends on your point of view, but if you ask ChatGPT certain questions, it will give you some answers that are not like very neutral.
Mhm.
But now that this is like put together with vehicles and everything, we're gonna start living in a different world. It's gonna get very interesting.
Yeah. And so what are some of the top insights that you have found in all of your study of AI and what's on the horizon? What are the top two or three kind of things that you've noticed that maybe is not on the surface, like something you really have to dig to learn?
So I will tell you, I don't know, and
Yeah,
that's okay,
and
right?
that's okay.
Pretty much. I'm working on a paper and not using artificial intelligence, just my own, but jobs that will be replaced by artificial intelligence. First wave. I mean, uh, you can see it right now. For example, bank tellers. If you go to Bank of America here in Austin, downtown, 4th Street in Lavaca, they have a Bank of America branch that it's managed only by screens and computers. They don't have any people, actual people over there. So if you're willing to do something, you enter a small room and you will just press a button, and the teller that it's somewhere, I don't know if the person is in China or Hawaii or Alaska, and they will verify your information with your ID. They have a scanner, so you will scan your ID just to make sure it's you, and from there you can do anything and whatever you like. So bank tellers are gone. We have ATMs and everything. I think lawyers. I don't know if you know about legal Zoom. It's pretty much they are starting with the artificial intelligence. They know or all the previous cases, and it's called jurisprudence, I think.
Mhm.
It's uh, what the judge comes out, the final decision of judge when they're handling a case, and that database has all the information. So the artificial intelligence will let you know how to defend yourself against any situation. So I think lawyers will be long gone. Um, and I mean, it's threatening for some positions. They also just open a McDonald's that is only operated by artificial intelligence back in Forward, Texas. So it's a drive-through, and you will talk to a Siri or Google Voice, order, place your order, and
And the food is
machines
made
will
by a
prep your
machine.
burgers.
Wow.
Yeah. So no people, just, and that makes sense now after the pandemic with the lack of workers. I manage restaurants, and man, has been very difficult to get people. So that's something that will help probably to the industry, and it's a threat on the side, on one side. On the other side, it's an opportunity. That's the way I see it.
So the big question that most people are going to think about in this situation, if all these jobs are getting replaced, and there are certain jobs that are always going to be protected, and jobs that have to do with interpersonal relationships and that sort of thing, they'll be the last to go until the robots just take over, and we Wally becomes like a reality. But
Yeah.
uh, the big question is, well, if those types of jobs are replaced, what do those people do? Where do they go?
Good question.
because
I
we're not making less people, Miguel.
yeah, it's growing every time. I think we're gonna end up giving uh, basic income to people, and we're gonna be like the Greeks that they used to be, just supported by their governments and just the military, the food supplies, and I think everything will. It's gonna be cheaper because no labor cost, so it's gonna be very cheap to produce anything. We're going to have an opportunity to do
Do you,
other
do you
things.
think though that just because something is cheaper to make, that the prices will be lower? Is an AI hamburger at McDonald's cheaper because it doesn't cost them as much to make?
Probably not
Probably
yet,
not.
but once they produce more, probably they will lower costs. And supply and demand laws, if they don't, people don't buy it because they don't have the income to, or the resources,
Mhm.
uh, the prices will go low.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's creating all of these interesting kind of situations that we're going to have to navigate through, that we don't really know how to navigate through, and of course that's okay.
That's okay because we don't know.
That's right. So let's get into the Duzong diagnostic. You ready?
I'm ready.
5 quick questions. First thing that comes to your mind. Number one, what's one thing you do, Miguel, that keeps you focused on your goals?
Um, the first thing in the morning that I do every day is just check my. I use an app from Google called it's here. Check it out. It's Google Keep.
Okay.
I have specific goals, and that pops up every morning. And with that, it's just a reminder that I need to do something specific. I have 10 tasks for the entire year, and I will accomplish. If I'm lucky enough, I will accomplish that.
Cool.
Hopefully.
And how do you get back on track whenever you lose that focus?
Well, I take some time off, especially on the weekends, just to do nothing, just to say or just like rethink about what's going on, and I do that on a regular basis, regardless of what's going on, what's happening. 1 or 2 hours, at least, to be calm, because if you're stressed or anything, you're not going to be able to go to the next step. Yeah.
And who's your support group, and how do they keep you accountable?
I have very proactive and smart people that are working with me, and we have talks once a week about what are the main goals of what we are doing, what are we trying to achieve, and how close we are to that specific tasks.
Okay. Awesome. And how do you approach a difficult project that you're not sure how to complete?
Well, writing, it's something, I don't know if it's psychological, but if you put anything on paper, it's like magic. Everything gets clearer. If you use just the computer and type, it won't happen. So what I do is I just start writing by hand, and if I don't get the answer right away, it will come out the next day or the next couple of days. It's hard to explain, but it's like magic.
Hmm. Awesome. And last question, what's the number one pro tip that you would give to someone looking to get more stuff done in less time?
Just be consistent and be very strict with your time. Don't waste your time thinking and waiting for everything to be ready. Just do it.
Nice. And so, talk to me a little bit, Miguel, about uh, you're doing a lot of research. You're really diving deep into AI. What's it all for? What's the goal for this? Are you starting something? Are you starting a business? Tell us more.
I'm planning. just to be more proactive, what the trends are. Um, I've found that people are leaning towards the not face to face, especially the newer generations. And I don't want to be left behind because, I'm getting older every day, not getting any younger. So if I don't research, I don't want to be the one that doesn't know how to manage that change in technology.
Hmm. It's an interesting point that you're making about younger generations want to be less face to face. And it's one of those things, kind of going back to the conversation we were having earlier. There are people right now who are resisting the advancements in technology because, well, no, you should be able to write a paper and you can't use AI, rather than changing the way that they assess intelligence and capability. They're holding firm, like this is the way it used to be, and the way it used to be has to be better. And I go through that struggle quite a bit with my daughter, who just turned 16.
Ouch.
Yeah. And communicating with her is a tremendous challenge, because I want to sit down and talk to her face to face, like a human being, because that's the way that I understand it. And I can obligate her to do that, but I get a lot of resistance. She would much rather text me from the other room, which doesn't make any sense to me. But it's how she communicates with all of her contemporaries. And so I am the anachronism in that situation, and I can lay down the law. This is how you talk, but if she's surrounded by people who don't communicate that way, I'm the one that stands out, whether I'm right or not. It doesn't matter if I'm right or not. What matters is, what is the way that most people are going to communicate, and most people are going to process and digest knowledge. And to be honest, that is the thing that puts the more interpersonal jobs and career paths potentially at jeopardy, because newer generations may not even want to interact with humans at all. They may just want to interface through AI and robots and holograms or something like that, anything that's not face to face. And so it's fascinating to really think about, pay attention to those context clues. They're right in front of you. You just got to decide if you want to see them or not.
Yeah, you will have to adapt, and adapting is very difficult. It just that reminds me, one of my teachers, math, actually, God bless her. She said something like, "Miguel, you're not gonna have a calculator handy every single time." And we do have it right now. So,
touche.
Yeah, touche. So probably right now we are that teacher, and we are resisting to adapt what's changing.
Yeah, that's a great point, because now what we're saying is, kid, at some point you are going to have to face another human being and navigate that relationship and all of the subtle difficulties that come along with that. And I'm not confident that I'm right about that anymore. I'm not sure that she will have to face another human being and deal with relationship subtleties and that sort of thing. She may be able to do it all via text and strip all of the context out whatsoever, and not have to ever have a real-time conversation. Who knows? But that's the way that it's going. And that's a great example. You're not always going to have a calculator handy. I got a phone in my pocket. Not only is it a calculator, but it has access to everything that has ever existed. Nobody could have predicted that.
No.
And so what could nobody have predicted now that's going to happen in the next 10, 15 years?
Yeah, we got to be flexible, and just, it's hard, I know, but if we don't do it, we're going to be just left behind, because everything will change regardless of what we think. So it's better if we adapt. I read a very good book about the algebra of happiness by Professor Scott Galloway. He talks about how people are losing that skill to be face to face and to interact with other humans. So if we have it, we can pass it on, uh, because you don't learn that at school, but you can probably teach that to your daughter, regardless of her resistance. She will learn texting and social media with her friends and everything, but those skills are only passed by you to her.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So, well, how can people reach out and get a hold of you if they want to connect?
Sure, just add Miguel Bram, Miguel without the L, on Twitter, and I'm always there.
Miguel Brem,
Yes,
always on Twitter. He's always on, guys.
always on.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for coming on here and sharing some of your wisdom about artificial intelligence and the new the coming technology wave and how it's going to potentially impact us as human beings. So once again, if you want to keep hearing great content like this, be sure to follow and subscribe to the Do Zone podcast on Apple and or Spotify. If you want to reach out to Miguel Brambila, you can catch him on Twitter, Miguel Brem, at Miguel Brem. If you're looking to break through the next level with your business, but you just don't have the time or tools to do so on your own, we got your back. Go to unbreakableteams.com now to learn more. Until next time, remember, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. What are you going to do with yours?